In this track of lectionary readings, we are taking the track that picks an Old Testament and Psalm that go together really independently of the New Testament readings. This track is a track which gives us access to some biblical stories that we don't normally get to see a whole lot of. And so this is where we are today. 1 Kings chapter 19, okay? And if you haven't read 1 Kings lately, 1 Kings is the first book that follows David's reign, if you will. If you don't remember, 1st and 2nd Samuel deal with David, basically. I know it's called the books of Samuel, but it's really the books of David. And it ends when David's done. And then in 1 Kings, it gets into everything that happens after David, basically. In chapter 19, which is where we are today, we are in the midst of King Ahab's reign. King Ahab was one of the bad kings of the northern kingdom. When I say bad, it's in the estimation of our narrator. He continued the sins of his predecessors, which was to allow way too much Baal worship. Any is too much. Well, he allowed way too much. And in the chapter we have for today, it is the third consecutive chapter that deals specifically with what Elijah the prophet is doing. Now, let's just start out with the first verses here, and then I'll have to give you some background. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done. Boom, boom, boom. What had Elijah done? Elijah in chapter 18 had just gotten done with the big Mount Carmel showdown, and where all the prophets of Baal were killed, basically. All right. Okay, so who is Jezebel? Jezebel was Ahab's wife. Ahab was, like I said, the king of the northern kingdom of Israel. And he took as his wife this woman named Jezebel, who was the Sidonian, daughter of the Sidonian king, I believe that's what it was. She was a Baal worshiper, and Ahab let this happen in Israel, the worship of Baal, at her behest. So here we turn in chapter 19, where our prophet Elijah, by the way, Elijah had just gotten introduced in chapter 17, not much on him. He just bursts on the scene really abruptly, announcing a drought that's about to come. We don't get any lead up to the story of Elijah. We just get, boom, he just lands on the scene. And so he kind of has his appearances are kind of bombastic, if you will. And the intensity with which he experiences and with God and how other people experience him are well-founded, if you will. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he killed all the prophets with the sword in the Mount Carmel showdown in chapter 18. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, "So may the gods do to me and more also if I do not make your life like the life of one of them by this time tomorrow." Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, it's a death threat, okay? If you watch those kinds of television series or movies, you know, you've seen this where somebody does something that somebody else doesn't like, and what they get is a messenger saying, hey boys, the boss says if you don't quit this, you could be swimming with the fishes, you know, that kind of a thing. Well, this is that kind of threat. Now, what's his response? Then he was afraid. He got up and fled for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah. He left his servant there. Oh, he left his servant there. I don't know if that means he left his servant in Beersheba, or if he left his servant in where he had been up in the northern kingdom. But the key to the fact that he's in Beersheba is, well, he's insulated from Jezebel and her reach because he's no longer in that northern kingdom. He is in Judah. And he's alone. The aloneness is what we're supposed to get with regard to Elijah. And what we have now is an experience, a very intense experience that he has with God. And he's going through some severe depression and doubt. I'm going to look at this in my versificated realm. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. Okay, so he left Beersheba there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors. This Elijah was really feeling this threat, right? We see this is very reminiscent of something we saw with our Lord in the Garden of Gethsemane. Yes, it's very possible that kind of an experience of Elijah's was a model, if you will, for what we see described in our Gospels with regard to our Lord. Then he lay under the broom tree and fell asleep. I don't know what a broom tree is exactly. Probably that kind of tree that you take branches from and use them as a broom. Okay. Suddenly, an angel touched him and said to him, "Get up and eat." You remember when Jesus was in the wilderness, he was ministered to by angels, we are told. Verse 6, he looked, and there at his head was a cake baked on hot stones and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. The angel of the Lord came a second time, touched him and said, "Get up and eat. Otherwise, the journey will be too much for you." Remember, he had already gone a day's journey into the wilderness, and he had more to go. We haven't been told yet where he's going or where he's headed or what's going to happen here, just that he's on some sort of a journey. This is a very intense personal experience he's having with the Lord. Verse 8, he got up and ate and drank. Then he went in the strength of that food. Look at this, 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the Mount of God. 40 days, 40 nights. This is, we remember the temptation, the temptation wanderings of Jesus. Remember that? His 40 days in the wilderness being tempted. And when he was done, he was hungry. And then the devil came and did what he did. Well, this could be that thing that experience is modeled on, literally speaking, right? Verse 9, at that place, he came to a cave and spent the night there. So Horeb is the name for Mount Sinai also. Our Deuteronomistic historian that is the redactor of the books of Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings, prefers this name for the mountain of God. It's the same mountain, we believe, that it's also referred to as Mount Sinai in the priestly writings, the priestly editor, redactor. Then the word of the Lord came to him saying, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Okay, here's what we got to get. We've already been told that Elijah had been threatened, and that he remember he had already asked that he might die. He wasn't. Instead of dying, what happened? The Lord fed him, okay, for the journey, because there was more work for God that God had for him to do. What are you doing here, Elijah? He answered, "I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away." Elijah's being a little dramatic here. He's exaggerating. There were prophets that had been stowed away. There were previous examples of that with Obadiah and his hiding prophets. So he's not the only one. He's exaggerating. This is a case of hyperbole. Oftentimes when we feel very bad about ourselves and our own situations, what do? We tend to awfulize. We awfulize. We make awful our situation by exaggerating. This is what he's doing, okay? He said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Okay, so go out and stand on the mountain. So it appears as though God is trying to do something to help to recommission Elijah, to give him some inspiration, some hope, right, to continue his ministry. For the Lord is about to pass by. Now there was a great wind, so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. Notice it says in pieces before the Lord. Before the Lord what? Before the Lord came? Because he said, "I'm about to pass by." But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. So, we gotta keep in mind that what is happening here is an intense personal religious experience, if you will, of a prophet, right? He's told to go out, stand on the mountain before the Lord. The Lord is about to pass by. This is an announcement of truth, okay? This is going to happen. And so what does he see is all of these manifestations of what normally is the Lord, but they aren't the Lord. They just announce that the Lord is about to pass by. The Baal worship of the day held that Baal was the god of nature, right? And so all these natural phenomena, the winds and the rocks and the earthquake and and fire, all of that stuff in the Baal worship economy, those are all things that Baal was responsible for. And the Lord is not in those, but yet the Lord uses those things to announce his passing by, right? And notice that it says, and after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. Now, we can presume that what that means is that the Lord wasn't in the other things. That means that the Lord finally did come. Okay, the Lord did finally pass by as announced. And so we make the connection that the Lord is in the sheer silence. Very possible, but I don't think that's the point of the story. Remember, we've got a prophet in crisis here, a prophet who is doubting his mission. When Elijah heard it, talk about the sheer silence, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. Wrapped his mantle. This is what you do when you think you're going to see God, you cover your face. So wrap your mantle. This is what you do. Then there came a voice to him that said, same exact words. What are you doing here, Elijah? He answered, I have been very zealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the Israelites have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they are seeking my life to take it away. Same thing as he said before. Then the Lord said to him, go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. Our reading stops there because it gets into some detail that we don't really need to get into right now. But what we essentially have is the counsel of the Lord to get back to work. Just get back to work, okay? Yeah, you can be all afraid of this and that and the other. Just get back to work. That's all you need to do is get back to work. One of the things that he is given to do, I will mention this, is he goes to Elisha, and he actually selects him as, when my ministry is done, you will be in this place. So he does. The Lord does help him in the sense of giving him a successor, okay, an heir, if you will, to the ministry. Like God saying, okay, what I have to do, I'm going to be continuing to do it even after you're gone, and so let's get you a protege. And he does that. So that's the story of 1 Kings. That's the story of Elijah in the thing with the sheer silence. People like to make a big deal about, oh yes, the Lord is present in the silence, in the still small voice. Well, that's not the main point here. The Lord, all of those other things, the earthquake, the wind, the fire, all of that, the Lord wasn't in it, but the Lord followed it, okay? The sound of silence, it basically meant for Elijah, it meant like, okay, it's safe to come out now. And and apparently he hears and sees the Lord. Well, I mean, that's why he wrapped his mantle, his face in his mantle, so he wouldn't die, because that was the belief that if you saw God, you would die. Anyway, our psalm always will accompany our first reading in this, the way this election is set up. And Psalms 42 and 43 are actually one poem. It's divided into two psalms. We do not know why, but it is one psalm. There is a superscription, if you will, before the psalm begins, where it says, to the leader, a maskil of the Korahites. The Korahites were a Levitical tribe, stewards of the temple, not necessarily stewards, but they was like singing like a choir almost, we think, based on what we've seen. Let us read this. As the deer longs for the water brooks, so longs my soul for you, O God. Water is the theme here, right? My soul is athirst for God, athirst for the living God. When shall I come to appear before the presence of God? My tears, again water, have been my food day and night, while all day long they say to me, where now is your God? One of the things we want to remember with regard to the Psalms is the post-exilic setting. Remember in Babylon, where they might have been written, not 100% sure about that, but they were definitely used during the Second Temple. The idea that they were in a strange land, and people would say, well, what has your God done for you lately? Because you're here and you're not there, and you said your God gave you that, and now you're here, so why are you here? So there was a deep, abiding experience of God missing, if you will. I pour out my soul when I think on these things, how I went with the multitude and led them into the house of God. This reflects some sort of a leadership role with a temple, possibly, and with the voice of praise and thanksgiving among those who keep Holy Day. So maybe it is written in the exilic community with a remembrance of the first temple. Mm-hmm. Why are you so full of heaviness, O my soul? And why are you so disquieted within me? So this gives us another viewpoint on, or gives us a clue that what we're hearing here is a lament, okay? A lamentation of the soul, of like, oh, woe is me. Think about it in terms of the fear and the anxiety and the depression, if you will, that Elijah was experiencing in the First Kings passage, right? Put your trust in God, for I will yet give thanks to him who is the help of my countenance and my God. Oh, yeah. So this is, so remember, a lot of times when in the Psalms we have people speaking in the second person about God, the first person, the third person. It's very likely that it's a responsive thing where somebody's saying to him. Remember, he had just said, why are you so full of heaviness, O my soul? Why are you so disquieted within me? And maybe a voice comes back from somebody else, or from the priests even maybe. Put your trust in God, for I will yet give thanks to him who is the help of my countenance and my God. Oh, and it's very, very likely that is even split between two different parts, right? Verse 8, my soul is heavy within me, therefore I will remember you from the land of Jordan and from the peak of Mizar among the heights of Hermon. The land of Jordan, the heights of Hermon, we're not exactly sure where the peak of Mizar is, but those are all northern things, far away from Jerusalem and the temple, okay? One deep calls to another in the noise of your cataracts. All your rapids and floods have gone over me. The word deep there is that word we have in Genesis where it says that the wind blew across the face of the deep, the Tahom, okay? Well, that's what we have, the deep, okay? And the noise of your cataracts. The cataracts, it's like a waterfall or a gushing water of some sort. All your rapids and floods have gone over me. Again, back to that water imagery, right? The Lord grants his loving kindness in the daytime. Loving kindness, that's that word chesed, which I've talked about a few times. I think it's a great word with regard to reflecting God's solidarity with us. That's what it means. It means solidarity. It gets translated as loving kindness, covenant love, that kind of thing. In the night season, his song is with me, a prayer to the God of my life. I will say to the God of my strength, why have you forgotten me? This is a perception that, if you could imagine, Elijah maybe felt that. We know also that there's an expression of Jesus on the cross, of why have you forsaken me, which is also from a psalm. And why do I go so heavily while the enemy oppresses me? While my bones are being broken, my enemies mock me to my face. Now, we know that Jesus didn't have any bones broken, bones broken. That's one of the reasons why we have that pointed out in Scripture, because there's something about there's another passage somewhere that says something about bones not being broken. But here, bones are being broken. Huh? My enemies mock me to my face. This is, as you can, this experience of Elijah, right? All day long they mock me and say to me, where now is your God? Again, think of the situation of the exiles. Where now is your God? You're here. And your God said you gave him, For verse 14, why are you so full of heaviness, O my soul? And why are you so disquieted within me? That is something that we've had before in this. We're going to have it again in verse 5 of chapter 43. I will put your trust in God, for I will give thanks to him, who is the help of my countenance and my God. And then 43 continues the same poem. Give judgment for me, O God, and defend my cause against an ungodly people. Deliver me from the deceitful and the wicked. You can again see why this would express the heart of Elijah, right? For you are the God of my strength. Why have you put me from you? This was his experience. Remember, that's also is a temporary experience of Jesus as well on Calvary. And why do I go so heavily while the enemy oppresses me? Send out your light and your truth, that they may lead me and bring me to your holy hill and to your dwelling, that I may go to the altar of God, to the God of my joy and gladness. And on the harp I will give thanks to you, O God, my God. Why are you so full of heaviness, O my soul? And why are you so disquieted within me? That's the third time we've heard that phrase. Put your trust in God, for I will give thanks to him who is the help of my countenance and my God. Third time we have that refrain. So that's one of the reasons why we believe these two psalms go together as one poem, because of the fact that refrain of put your trust in God happens. It happens in verses 6, 7. It happens in verses 14, 15, and then again in chapter 43, verses 5 and 6. The same refrain. So that's our psalm. The design of the Psalms is to be a release for our human emotions that give us an expression, and as it came to be used in corporate worship as responsive readings, you can see how this would it allows the body of the worshiping community to bring forth those same kind of emotions. It validates those emotions, gives them a place we expose that part of ourselves to God, and that's the only way we can then be healed. And that's why we do that. Okay, we're moving on. This the New Testament readings. We're going to be in Galatians. Yes. Galatians chapter 3. Galatians is one of those letters where Paul is dealing with a couple of issues, okay? One of the big issues is just how Jewish do you have to be a Christian? This is one of them. And another issue is, are you sure you're really an apostle? Are you genuine? Are you authentic? Are you the real deal, or are you just an imposter? These are concerns that Paul had to address in his letters because this was coming at him. So a lot of what we get, a lot of that where it appears like he's defensive, well, that's why he's being defensive, is because that's an accusation that's coming at him. All right. In Galatians chapter 3, we are in. So, by the way, if we had been if Easter had been at a different time of the year, we would have heard the first couple of. This would have been like the third week of Galatians. We're still going to get 2 or 3 more before we move on to another letter of Paul's. But this is a contiguous, what we get in the New Testament are, we try to get these continuous readings in the epistles. We try to get continuous readings in the gospel. And it's like we have to fill in the gaps between them, but it's supposed to give us a flow, a feeling for the flow of the thoughts, okay? In Galatians, we are in chapter 3, verses 23 to 29. Now, before faith came, We were imprisoned and guarded under the law until faith would be revealed. Remember what I mentioned? One of the questions that was being asked, how Jewish do we have to be Christians? Or how Christian do we have to be Jewish? Remember, Paul is ministering amongst the Gentiles. They weren't so keen on becoming full proselytes with the requirement of circumcision and such. Now, before faith came, we were imprisoned and guarded under the law until faith would be revealed. So when Paul talks about before faith, he's talking about what the faith that we have in Christ. Faith existed beforehand. In fact, he's going to point out the fact that it did. But in his verbal battle with people in this church, he has to give an accounting for, like, well, what good is Torah then? All of this instruction, this law, this instruction that's been so important, what are we supposed to do with that now? Well, Paul says it was a guardian and a prisoner, okay? It was something that kept us safe, safe from ourselves, safe from each other, imprisoned, didn't allow a lot of freedom, and it kept us. I think he's trying to say, like, it kept us safe, okay, in a place, and it kept everybody else safe too. Because if you think about what prison does, is it not only keeps you, it keeps you from the people, it keeps the people from you, okay. Until faith would be revealed, the Torah was a temporary thing. It wasn't eternal, okay. Therefore, the word Torah, the law was our disciplinarian until Christ came. Yeah, that represented a time of us being under guardianship, if you will, or it was like a mentor for us, but we're supposed to move beyond it, is what Paul is saying. Therefore, the law was our disciplinarian until Christ came, so that we might be justified by faith. For Paul, faith is the appropriation of what God did through Christ and accepting what God did through Christ. But now that faith has come, we are no longer subject to a disciplinarian. Yes, we can say goodbye to the training wheels. We can say goodbye to those things that we can put on our big boy pants now, okay? For in Christ Jesus, verse 26, you are all children of God through faith. How many times has he said faith already? I mean, like 3 or 4 or 5. Verse 27, as many of you as were baptized into Christ, you have clothed yourselves with Christ. To clothe oneself, it's as though taking on a whole new being. One of the things that it's believed that was practiced with regard to baptism in the earliest church was that they would be given a white, they would be baptized naked, and they would be given this robe as they came out. And so this is the imagery we get here. You've clothed yourselves with Christ. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. Whew. All of these distinctions, remember, one of the things that defined Judaism and Jewishness, what it meant to be a part of the people of God, was your ethnicity, your gender, your status in life, your societal status. And Paul's saying all of that is gone. None of that matters anymore. Verse 29, and if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. Abraham's seed is the literal word there. Then you are Abraham's seed. Paul reaches all the way back to Abraham instead of saying, okay, well, everything started with Moses and the law. No, it started about 400 years before that when God talked to Abraham. And all this is the law was a temporary thing in the midst of God's big faith, God's attempt to get us to come to faith, period. Faith was the answer. Faith, it was supposed to be faith all along, and the law was necessary for a certain time in our life, okay? What Abraham showed was a what do you call it, a proleptic vision into the future, like a little bit out of his time, like this is where things are going. Now, then we needed the law. We needed that time of instruction. We needed that time of being that kind of a distinct people. But that time is over. Now it's time to get it out there. That's what God was intending all along. Then you are Abraham's offspring, heirs according to the promise. So that is Paul's reading from Galatians. Now, like I told you, these readings don't necessarily go together. There might be a similar theme, but definitely not between the New Testament and Old Testament. But let's see what we see when we look at our reading from the Gospel of Luke. Okay, we are in the Gospel of Luke. That is the Gospel for year C. We did start this in Advent. Yeah, Advent. And we got a little bit more of it in Epiphany, but then in Easter we switched to John. But now we're back in Luke, chapter 8, verses 26 to 39. In this passage, Jesus, in the Gospel of Luke anyway, this is like the only time we see Jesus in Gentile territory, okay? Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. That's how we know it's opposite Galilee, the east side of Galilee. That's how we know it's in Gentile territory. As he stepped out on land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house, but in the tombs. We would probably encounter him as like a homeless person. A lot of people who are homeless have mental disease and such, right? When he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." One of the things we have witnessed to in Scripture is that the demons and those beings in that spiritual realm, they recognized Jesus. Okay, they recognized him. They knew exactly what was going on before a lot of other people did. Okay, and in this greeting, what we get is an immediate, like, when who you are is the Son of God, it's a compelling kind of a thing. And if you recognize it, you can't deny it. It's something that just, boom, it's right there for you. With people who weren't so inclined in that spiritual realm, this guy was demon-possessed, not the best kind of spiritual realm, right? But still the spiritual realm, there's a recognition and there's a compulsion, if you will, to interact. I beg you, do not torment me. They knew exactly what Jesus was up to as the Son of God, right? For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. Notice, this is the way Luke likes to tell things. He likes to say, well, when something other, they did this. And it's like, we sometimes feel like he's burying the lead, okay? So apparently Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. We're not told that he did that. We're not told that he did that, but he is in retrospect, right? And then in parentheses we have, for many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. This is something that we would call, okay, this guy's got a mental disturbance, right? And he's obviously suffering much from this. Jesus then asked him, so you might want to, why wouldn't Jesus, why wouldn't he command the unclean spirits to come out of the man? Even though he didn't narrate it to us, he just said it in happenstance. Like, that's the compulsion, if you will, of what the Son of God does in the wake of something that's needing something. There's no withholding. It just automatically already always there. Okay, kind of like the love that's supposed to be in our hearts. We're not supposed to have to think about it. We're not supposed to generate it. We're not supposed to say, oh gosh, well, what would the loving thing be? Well, if we were in tune, it would be right there for us. Okay. Then Jesus asked him, what is your name? And he said, Legion, for many demons had entered him. Legion is a name for Roman, like thousands of Roman soldiers, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 Roman soldiers, kind of a thing. And so this guy, it's like, this guy's severely disturbed, okay? For many demons had entered him. They begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. The abyss, apparently, when in that spiritual realm, apparently if you're not in a body tormenting something or somebody, you're in the abyss. We don't want to go back there. Now, there on a hillside, verse 32, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these. It's like, what's the option? Okay, they don't care. They don't have that restriction on clean and unclean, so there you go. So he gave them permission. Again, the picture Luke is painting of Jesus is that, yes, he's in control. Then the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. Boom, dead. Now, I don't know what that means. What happens to the demons then? Do they stay in the dead pigs? I don't know. That's a good question. Did they end up going to the abyss anyway? I don't know. So maybe their plan didn't work. It's like, oh, well, we'll do that. Well, then it makes them crazy and then they die. So maybe they did get released into the abyss. I don't know. Probably. Verse 34. When the swineherds, a swineherd is like a shepherd, only they're just taking care of swine. Get it? Swineherd. When the swineherds saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. It's like, can you believe what this guy did? We lost our whole herd because of that guy. Then people came out to see what happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. We can presume that he was not Jewish. After all, because of where he lived, yes, we're going to presume that this guy was a Gentile, okay? And that fits with what is going on in the setting and where it's going at the end. And they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. So they were all talking about it. It's like, that guy there, that's that guy. Yeah, look at him now. And they were afraid. It's like, whoa. To see this man, the difference in this man, and the fact that we lost our herd, we're not so sure about this. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So, yes, they didn't know what to do. It was like, it was so convincing. It was so real for them, so raw. It's like, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. So he got into the boat and returned. Went back to Jewish country, right? So we got into the boat and returned back to the other side of Galilee. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, return to your home and declare how much God has done for you. So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. So So here's a request of somebody. Jesus is, what we see in Luke is a very Jewish Jesus, okay? Don't be deceived. And his mission, we see that this is the beginning of the Gentile mission, which is going to be fully explicated in Acts on the way toward preaching an unhindered gospel in the world to all peoples. But Jesus is clear in that, okay, now is not the time for that. Okay, now is not the time for that. Maybe there is a correlation between this and what we had in the Galatians reading, right? In that the law was that thing. It's like, well, there's a time for this and there's a time for that. Jesus saying, yes, there is a time for you to follow me, but this isn't that time. Yeah, maybe. In the direction in our readings after Pentecost, they continue to deal with questions of like, so what does the church now do? Now that the church has the Spirit, okay, what does the church do? And what we're seeing is the church spreading outward, okay? The full force of God, the full force of the resurrection, the full force of the Spirit says it cannot be contained. It cannot be stifled. It must get out. And in the gospel, we see the seed of that. And then in Galatians, we see how that word is actually being fulfilled in Paul's preaching and his conversion of Gentiles. And they're asking questions, and Paul saying, okay, in the big picture, this religious stuff was all that. Now we're into this new era. This is the way I read all that, folks. That's it for the second Sunday after Pentecost. We'll see you in church. Peace.